done with partners of ours at Northwestern, and they wanted to ask the question, what happens to job changing behavior when we're in an up or a down economy? Now we know from the research, actually a long line of research, that when you have a poor economy, that people tend to stay in their jobs more often. They're less likely to leave voluntarily. When the economy improves, we actually find people are more inclined to leave their jobs, so attrition tends to go up. But what we didn't know until we engaged in this research is that the nature of people that are staying or leaving in their jobs changes when the economy is up or down. Simply stated, in a down economy, the people that do change jobs tend to be relatively high performers. So it's people who are very successful that are more likely to leave jobs when the economy isn't so good. Now, when the economy improves, as it's doing right now, what you tend to see is that job changers tend to be relatively lower quality. They aren't as successful in roles. So there's sort of a good news, bad news thing. The good news is that when the economy improves, the economy is improving, but unfortunately, what that also means is that there's a higher proportion of what we call low performers and poorly matched individuals that are now looking for jobs. And so what that means for large employers is that it's important to really be filtering and screening more carefully than they were when the economy was down a few years ago. We need to be really careful because we know that within that pool of available talent, that more and more of those people tend to be lower performers. Veterans, this is kind of a feel-good story. Military veterans are more dependable than non-veterans. So when we analyze the workforce outcomes of those with military experience and those without, we found military veterans stay on the job just as long, their tenure is virtually identical, but their schedule adherence is 2% higher and their absenteeism is 10.7% lower. So that is the equivalent of, for every 10 veterans, having to hire 11 non-veterans. It's a big difference. And so the takeaway here is that veterans can really help, and if you see someone with military experience, that someone should potentially be given a boost in the hiring process. And then finally, promotion behavior. I find that in the course of what we do, we often analyze negative outcomes. So we look at employee tenure and we call it survival, which is kind of a morbid topic. But we like to look at the positive things. Instead of just thinking about toxic employees, let's talk about really high performers. For example, people that end up getting promoted into supervisory and managerial role. What's neat is that we found a science-based assessment is predictive not only of short-term tenure outcomes, but long-term promotion outcomes. And we found that that assessment is strongly predictive of who is going to stay long enough to get promoted and who's going to perform well in their next role. And of course, the natural question is, okay, well, what is it about the assessment that matters? We found it's very simple, and it's three things. One is retention. Keeping people longer, of course, allows them to reach promotion more frequently than people who leave the organization. Second is service orientation. People who are helpful and like working with others, they tend to be more agreeable and they tend to be promoted more frequently. And then finally, the ability to solve problems is a strong predictor of someone's likelihood to be promoted within these frontline roles. And so the good news here is that we don't just focus on the negative outcomes, we're able to focus on the positives and keeping people long enough to get them promoted and to reward them for strong performance.